The Russian Foreign Ministry summoned the ambassador of Luxembourg in our country. A strong protest was made to him in connection with the exhumation on May 19th, in Luxembourg, of the remains of one of the leaders of the organization of Ukrainian nationalists, Melnik, recognized as extremist in Russia, and his wife for subsequent so-called ceremonial reburial in Ukraine. Kiev's neo-Nazi regime, with active military, political, and financial support from the EU and NATO member states, continues terror against the civilian population and civil infrastructure of our country. Zelensky boasts, as he put it, about the accuracy of the Ukrainian armed forces, publicly setting them new terrorist tasks. All this happens like this, just openly. The bloody crime convincingly demonstrated that the neo-Nazi regime of Zelensky feels absolute impunity, favor from all NATO supporters, no norms of international humanitarian law during conflicts, including the Geneva Conventions of 1949, additional protocols to them, and documents regulating the protection of civilians in conflict, and the Convention on the Children's Rights of 1989, and much more are not written for him. The reaction of the UNESCO Secretariat was shocking. These are not just some double standards or some biased statements. This, seems to me, is a flagrant case of criminal negligence. This is a real crime for one simple reason. It is this organization that is entrusted by countries' states to officially monitor what is happening, in particular, in the field of child rights protection. A certain comment from the UNESCO press service was published. Let me remind you once again, on May 25th, the authors of the message generally turned a blind eye to the death of children. They simply did not see that children died there. They did not see that students died there. They just briefly noted that according to reports, which allegedly cannot be verified due to the lack of access to this territory by UN representatives, led to the death of representatives of the civilian population. That's it. But how? You must know in the UNESCO Secretariat that it is about children who have names, surnames, dates of birth, and unfortunately, one date of death for all. We have repeatedly drawn the attention of Tokyo to the fact that we consider the provision of Japanese territory for the deployment of American medium and shorter-range missile systems, regardless of whether this is done on an episodic, rotational, or permanent basis, as a step that turns out to cause a serious negative impact on the stability and security of the Asia-Pacific region, and creates a direct threat to our Far Eastern borders. We also regularly warned the Japanese side against making such decisions, which will inevitably be qualified by us as deliberate, hostile, and ignoring the national interests of the Russian Federation. We do not see fundamentally new moments in the statement you mentioned. In essence, this is a statement of the actual situation, with the cessation of meetings in the trilateral format, and not through the fault of Russia, I would like to emphasize. The redeployment of U.S. military bases and contingents from less, as we assume, reliable to more reliable in the U.S. interpretation, in the countries of Central and Eastern Europe, including Poland for strike distance along the western borders of our country, is unacceptable. This would not only inevitably mean the need for forced adoption of necessary military technical measures to ensure the security of the Russian Federation, but would also lead to a qualitative escalation of military tension throughout the European space, especially amid an increasingly provocative line of U.S. satellites in Europe in relation to the Russian Federation. Attacks of drones flying from the Baltic and northern European states towards targets in Russia not only continue, their intensity is increasing. NATO countries have to react to this themselves, trying to shoot down drones, declare air alerts, Isn't that so? It is. We cannot ignore what is happening while planning our actions, so we will take this into account. As before, we consider the Republic our natural partner in the South Caucasus. We consider the Armenian people as brothers. We want exclusively peace and prosperity for them. We hear statements from Armenian officials about Yerevan's intention to maintain relations with Russia, that they will not allow anyone to use the Republic against our country. However, we are used to judging not only by words, but also by deeds, and they, for some reason, increasingly diverge from the mentioned words. Russia has never been against the diversification of Armenia's external relations. However, today's line of the Armenian authorities can hardly be called that. Serious initiative with Russian participation, Yerevan somehow delays, freezes, but at the same time conducts systematic work on the implementation of European standards. No one, however, knows what these European standards are. They sign various memorandums, some framework plans with Western capitals. But probably everything would be fine. There is only one important nuance. These very Western capitals have declared a real hybrid war on Russia and publicly formulated it as inflicting, as they made up there, a strategic defeat on our country. So with whom does Yerevan conclude all these strategic agreements on plans and intentions? With those who wish harm to our common Eurasian space? We note the demonstrative connivance of Nikol Pashinyan's team related to the targeted Western campaign to stimulate anti-Russian sentiments, literally every day. This is both statements and throw-ins that Moscow allegedly interferes in the internal affairs of the Republic, subjecting it even to such hybrid attacks. It is clear to the naked eye that relations with Moscow are perceived as a tactical tool for seeking financial support needed to shift towards the European path. This, as they call it, is a civilisational choice. This is exactly how the leadership of Armenia in Yerevan says, and it has already been made. It is supposedly enshrined in the law adopted in April 2025 on the start of Armenia's accession to the European Union. When they came to Moscow, they said not to pay attention to this. It is just on paper.